This week also Parshas Shmini. HaChodesh as Alochem, we're going to read in Parshas HaChodesh that Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu in Parshas Boy as an introduction to the halachas of Korban Pesach. He says this month, Rosh Chodashim is the head of months. Rishon hu lochem l'chot Hashanah. It's the first for you of the months of the year. It's known the examination of this pasuk by the Rebbe Rashab, the one whose yard site is on the 2nd of Nisan, Dibra Matzkel in a mimer by this title in his very famous Hemshech of Mamorim called Hemshech Tafresh Samach Vav. We need to understand Al Rish Chodesh Tishrei hu Rosh Hashanah. The first of the month of Tishrei, that's the head of the year. That's the beginning of the year. And not just is it the beginning, but we call it the head. The head of the year is called the head because it includes the entire year, just like, because that's why it's called the head. Just like the head includes in it the entire vitality and life force of the body. So the Rosh Hashanah includes in it the general life force of the year. And then it doesn't just stop over there, that Rosh Hashanah is the head of the year, but also, so too, Rosh Hashanah Koilot, V'nechlach Acharkach, which name was Rosh Chodashim. Afterwards, that Chai is Kloli, that's in the head of the year, is divided into 12 heads of months. B'chol Rosh Chodesh l'shloshim yom, and every Rosh Chodesh has in it included the 30 days of that month. Comes out that by extension, if you work your way backwards, if every Rosh Chodesh that includes 30 days is part of the Rosh Hashanah, Nimtza comes out the Rosh Hashanah, who Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Hashanah is the first, the head, and the first of all the months of the year. Why does it say about the head of the month of Nisan that it's the head of the months? So if we just look at this question superficially, it's just the general question, when is the head of the year? Can you have head of months, not be the head of the year? But the Rebbe is going to explain this a little bit further, even and analyzing the expression of the head of the months, which is usually the difference that we make. There's the head of the year, that's Rosh Hashanah, and then there's the head of the months, that is Nisan. So the Rebbe is going to say the question is even how we can call it the head of months. It says in line 12, we can explain why does the Maimer bring after saying that Rosh Hashanah is the head of the year because it includes all the life force and vitality of the whole year. So he could have just stopped over there and could have said, how can you call Rosh Chodesh Nisan the head of the months if it's already on Rosh Hashanah, it's the head of the year that includes all the chayos of the year? Why does he have to go on to explain that the life force of the head of the year is divided afterwards into 12 Rosh Chodashim, which is something that's explained at length in the Ateres Reish of the Mittler Rebbe. In the movement, the Rebbe says, seemingly it's not understood. What does it matter? What's the point of bringing this idea over here to explain this idea, to say that not only is Rosh Hashanah the head of the year, but how does it come out further? Because it afterwards divides into 12 months. Wouldn't divide into 12 months, wouldn't be the head of the year. What's the point of it? The Rebbe says that by introducing this point, the question becomes even more difficult how we can call Nisan the head of the months. So line 17, this is emphasized. Rosh Hashanah is the head also for the months of the year. According to this, it's even stronger, the question, why do we say on the first, on the head of the month of Nisan, that it's the head of months, because if we would just say that Rosh Hashanah includes in it all the 365 days of the year, okay, so then it would make more sense to say, when it comes to the year in general, that's Rosh Hashanah. When it comes to months, that has its own seder, that comes from Rosh Chodesh Nisan. But once the Rebbe Rasha brings in, not only is Rosh Hashanah the head of all the days of the year, but includes in it all the 12 months of the year. And that's how they get their chayis individually, that each day of the month comes from the head of the month, which the head of all the months are included in the head of Rosh Hashanah. So then it seems to be obvious that the head of the year is also the head of the month. So you don't have any more that out to say, you know what, Rosh Hashanah is the head of the year. Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the head of the month. No, all the 12 heads of the months are included in the head of the year. And from the head of the year becomes 12 heads of months. So it comes out that Rosh Hashanah is not just the head of the year or the days of the year, however you want to define that, but it's the head of months. So it's the head of months. How can we call Nisan also the head of months? So he goes on line 19, move on. And from this, it's understood by the fact that we call Rosh Hashanah the head of the year, and we call Nisan the head of the month. Emes Yeshnem Shnei and Yonim, that in truth, there are both aspects, both components. Both of them are said in the Torah of truth, so both of them must be true. There is one concept that the head of the month of Tishrei is the head of the year. And when we say head of the year, in that term itself, not only is it the head for the days of the year, it's also the head of the months of the year, like we mentioned before. Despite and in addition to that, line 22, there's also the idea that the head of the month of Nisan is the head of the month, even though it seems to be like overlapping each other. And the Rebbe goes on to say, this is also understood. Also, what the Chazal said in the Medrash, when Hashem chose His world, on top of the next page, He established in the world at the time of creation. That's what it means when He chose in this world. He established it in it both heads of months and heads of years, which means not at two distinct times, but in the same time, Tishrei. That Tishrei is both the head of years and the head of months together. But afterwards, when He chose Yaakov and his children, in other words, when He took the Yidden out of Mitzrayim, He established in the world a head of month of redemption, which is Rosh Chodesh Nisan, which becomes now the head of the months of the year, distinct from Rosh Hashanah. What does this mean? Line 2. What do we see from this Maimer Chazal? I know there's the idea that Hashem chose His world. When He chose His world, when He created His world, then He established in it heads of months and years. Both of these things, the heads of months and the heads of years, are connected and associated with Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. That's the head of the year. There's also the idea that Hashem chose Yaakov and his children. Then He established in it a head of month of redemption. That's the idea of the head of month of Nisan. That is what Hashem chose when He chose the Yidden and He established a month of Gul. The Rebbe says we need to understand what are these two things, the two different types of choices that Hashem made at the beginning of creation versus when He chose the Yidden. Line 8, also we need to understand what Chazal said in Medrash. And this Medrash is brought down in Rashi's commentary on Torah, right away at the beginning, that Rashi brings down the very simple question. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak said, in truth, the Torah is instructions. That's the word Torah, from the word Torah, lessons, instructions. What a Yid is supposed to do. Therefore, it should have begun, the Torah should have begun with the first instructions to the Yidden as their obligations in Torah mitzvahs. The first place in the Torah that there are instructions to the Yidden as Jewish people as responsible to do mitzvahs of Hashem begins with Parshas HaChodesh. The fact that it talks about Bris Milah by Avram, or it talks about Dהשr by Yaakov, or other things, we know that Rambam brings down that we do not observe the mitzvah of Dהשr because Yaakov was commanded. We do not observe Bris Milah because Avram was commanded. We observe it because it was given to Moshe Rabbeinu on Har Sinai. So the first time that Yidden were addressed by Hashem to keep mitzvahs was in HaChodesh HaZolochem. So therefore, the Torah should have begun with the parsha that deals with Korban Pesach, with HaChodesh HaZolochem. What's the purpose of all this history, a whole Chumash Bereishis, and then from Shmois till we get to Boy to begin with HaChodesh HaZolochem? Matam Pasuk Bereishis, Rashi goes on quoting the Medrash. For what reason did the Torah begin with Bereishis, Bar Elokim, and everything else that goes on? And he explains, because the power of his actions, in other words, Hashem told his nation the power of his creation, what he did in this world, losses lahem nachlas goyim, to be able to give to them the inheritance of the nations, like it goes on over there in Rashi, because if the nations will come and say, you robbed us of our land, we say Hashem created the world. He initially gave it to people one, the Eretz Yisrael, now he's giving it to us. Go take your complaints to him. So now Rebbe analyzes this interesting Maimer Chazal in regards to what we're just now talking about, the heads of the year and Hashem choosing Rosh Hashanah being the heads of the months in the year. It says in line 13, the L'chura Eich Masa Minyan Zeh. Seemingly, how does this correspond? In Maimer HaMedrash, how does this Maimer Rabbi Yitzchak, that the Torah should have began with a HaChodesh HaZolochem, how does it fit in with the idea that first Hashem chose his world, then he chose Yaakov and his children, Gehem, Behesem, L'shnei, and Yonim, that these actually fit in with the two ideas that Rabbi Yitzchak was talking about. The Bereishis, when it talks about the Torah starting from Bereishis, that is expressing Bachar Bailam, it's expressing the facet, the aspect that Hashem chose his world. On the other hand, the other option where Torah could have begun was B'Chodesh HaZolochem, this month is for you, is expressing the other thing in the other Medrash, Rosh Chodesh Shel Geula, that Hashem established, or Rosh Chodesh Shel Geula. So the Rebbe asks that really these two Medrashim are difficult to reconcile. What's the problem? It says in line 18, the Kibbutz Shnei and Yom Shonim. Since these are two distinct aspects, the idea of the choosing in the world, choosing the heads of months and the heads of the world, and not just are they two verses, choosing Yaakov and his children. And not only are they two distinct things and two different things, they're even two opposites of each other. His choice in the world versus choosing Yaakov and his children. The idea of a head of month of redemption. Right? What's the idea of redemption? Redemption. What's the idea of redemption? Leaving the state that the person was in prior to it and going into a totally different state and situation, a totally opposite situation. like we have the expression used in the Haggadah, and it says, Mishibur L'Geula, we went out from enslavement to redemption, Mo'afel Loyer Gadol, from a great darkness to a powerful light. So we see just like from strong darkness to powerful light, those are two extremes. The same thing, the world prior to the Geula and the world post Geula are two opposite things, which means that in truth, the choosing of the world and beginning the Torah with Bereshis versus the choosing of Yaakov and his children and beginning from Achayish Alochem are two extremes on the spectrum. Even came the Rebbe says, if so, why does he say that the Torah should not have begun from Achayish Alochem? And what's the idea that what's the reason that it began with Bereshis? Hainu, in other words, that the point behind this question is, like we said before, Torah's idea is because Torah is about instructions to the Yidden what they should do. That's why Achodesh Hazalachem should have been the beginning of the Torah. And on the other hand, V'apal Pikein, and still in all, he decided to Pesach Torah being the Hafkid Bereshis School. The Torah begins with an opposite thing concerning Bereshis. In other words, how can there even be a consideration that something that's completely opposite of the other should be in its stead? Obviously, they're worlds apart. If they're worlds apart, how can you even compare it and say, don't start here, start there? On the other hand, you could also ask the other way, that seemingly quote the worlds apart, that strengthens the questions. But this is the way that Rebbe takes it, that since they're so different, it's not even possible that they're apples and oranges to even compare it and say, don't start with A, start with B. It's not A and B. It's A and 345. It has no connection whatsoever. Okay, let's go on to Ois Beis, line 30. Yuvan Bahagdim Deep L'Shain HaMedrash will be understood by first examining the exact language of the Medrash, Mishebachar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ba'olam. When Hashem chose His world, Ukishebachar B'Yaakov. Now, when He chose Yaakov and his children, He established a month of redemption, and when He chose His world, He established heads of months and heads of years. Seemingly, there could have been a much more simpler expression used. When Hashem created the world, Rosh Hashanah, that's when He chose the heads of the months and the years and so on, heads of months, heads of years. When He took the Yidden out of Mitzrayim, He established a month of redemption. What is this emphasis on Bach? The Rebbe is going to use the word Bechira to its utmost sense, the idea of free choice, and by doing so, will give a deeper understanding of all this. I know this means both aspects. What happened at the beginning of creation, that Hashem established heads of months and heads of years in Rosh Hashanah. And what happened later on when Hashem took the Yidden out of Mitzrayim and He established Nisan as a head of months and a month of Geula, both of those are a result of Hashem's choice. What's the idea of choice? Top of page Zayin, the concept behind this is the idea of choice. It's only applicable in such a level that's beyond any concept of existence that can affect any type of leaning to a particular type of line. Meaning, if I have a tendency and I'm already attracted to one out of two choices, then, as the Rebbe many times emphasizes, then there's no true free choice. Because either I'm choosing the thing because I want the thing, or I'm choosing the thing and the other thing despite my want of this thing. But it's not a clearly free choice type of thing. So it goes on line 3. Is the idea of free choice is that he's not obligated, and metaphorically speaking, obviously by Shem, there's no obligation in one particular line or approach than another. This is also considered the level that's called Yecholos. There's a level within the Oinus of Shlifnei Tzimtzum, prior to the Oinus of itself, that's called the capability and possibility. That Chassidus explains that Shem should be Yicholte Lahoyer, Kach be Yicholte Shaloi Lahoyer, just like it's in his capability to shine and illuminate, so too it's in his capability and possibility should not to illuminate, meaning that there's a place where illumination, light, revelation, and concealment and darkness are both the same for him. In our world, illumination, kedusha, holiness, that is high, valuable, etc. Darkness, klippa, distance, constriction, that's something that's a no-no. So he says, that level of Hashem's yicholos is the capability for a general idea of concealment and revelation. But it's not just the capability for both, but it's in such a manner that yes and no are equal by him. That's the highest level where both revelation, positive, negative, it's all the same by him. And that's why you could use over there the term bechira. You can use over there the term choice. If it wasn't identical, you couldn't use the term choice over there. From this results from that yicholos comes out the two lines of Hashem's limited power and his unlimited power. His capability to reveal, express itself in an unlimited way, his capability to conceal takes and limits on the revelation. And even lower than the two approaches of Gevul and Bli Gevul when it manifests itself in this world. The levels of concealment and revelation. Where is that to express itself? The natural way of running the world, that's concealment, as we're soon going to explain, that Hashem is concealed in nature, versus the miraculous way where when Hashem performs miracles, then he is revealed, which is the two parts of this Maimer Chazal. Bachar by Lama, he chose his world, that's choosing the line of not revelation, concealment, limitation. That is, he created, what does it mean he chose his world? He created a world with natural laws. He created the world that the sun rises in the east and goes down the west. This happens every day. This is all nature where Hashem's hand and Hashem's involvement is concealed. On the other hand, when he chose Yaakov and his children, he took them out of Mitzrayim, and he established a month of redemption. All of that was about miracles. All of that is about revealing himself, that Mitzrayim should know of Havai. They should not just have the awareness of nature. So these are the two choices, because as we said before, there were equal lines. By Hashem, there was a line of concealment, and that was one choice that he made, really, because it had no less value by him than revelation. And when he chose Yaakov and his children, and he did miracles, and he manifested himself, he chose the line of revelation. Goes on further in line 11, if you do, as it's known. that Hashem, because of his being the most perfect and complete existence, there are both lines. There must be. Not only does Hashem have the capability of being without boundary and infinite, he also has the capability of boundaries and limitations. Could move it become a drushim, like it's brought down in many Mamorim, what it says in Avodas HaKodesh. Shame, yes, like with Bilti Balgvul, Avodas HaKodesh says that just like Hashem has the power in the unlimited, kach yesh lekach b'gvul, so too he has the power in the limited and the finite. And he uses a very simple logic. If you will say that he has a power and capability in the unlimited, but he doesn't have a power in the limited, so then you are detracting, you are removing from his perfection and completion. He is therefore incomplete and imperfect. He is only capable of the infinite. So in that type of way, we see that both of these lines, off and on, the binary system, yes and no, hein v'lav, helam v'gili, bli gvul and gvul, hanaganisis and tivis, bachar by lame, bachar b'yakub and bonov, both of them are necessary to be part of the shleimus. Zem Movement says in line 18 from this understood. The more the perfection of Hashem is higher and greater, there is a greater joining and union between the two lines of the unlimited and the limited. The higher we go, the less distinction there is between them. The lower we go, so we say, oh, we see how Gvul is so much powerful than Gvul, how revelation is better than not revelation, miracles are greater than nature. But when we go all the way back to its highest source, and we go to where it is in Hashem's perfect state, there's no distinctions between them. And there's less divisions, and they're more joined together. Line 21. By this will be understood the exact language that we asked before. It doesn't say when Hashem created the world. It says when Hashem chose the world. Though his world, from the expression concealment, the idea is limitation, boundaries, still in all. Since this is a result of Hashem's choice, and that's like from the perspective of Hashem's choice, the unlimited and the limited are the same. There's no preference of one over the other. Not only are they the same, but also Shneim Klulim Mechubarim Yachad, top of page Ches, they're both intermingled and joined together. Therefore, there could be even in the world bleakful. Here's something very interesting. Even though we just now said that Hashem chose Gvul, he chose the limitations of the world, but along with choosing the limitations of the world, since choice comes from a place where both Bli Gvul and Gvul are joined, so therefore even the Bli Gvul component, even the unlimited component, is something that comes into the world. As we'll explain right now, connecting it to the previous mimer we learned. Line 2, this is also connected to what was explained previously in the previous mimer. The Pirish HaKos of Chukas Shemayim V'Aretz, and the explanation of the pasuk, the laws of heaven and earth, and we said it's also from the word chukah as engraving. The lechura in the movement seemingly it's not understood. How is it possible to say the idea of engraving over the existence of the world? The world is a created being. It's explained in many mamorim. It's explained in many mamorim when it talks about what it says in Telecho, where it says or it says Pesach. So it explains over there, Milas naksiva, the advantage of engraving over writing. That engraving, the letters are part of the stone itself, whereas writing, the ink and the parchment are really two separate things. So therefore, how can we call the world being engraved with Hashem? How is it possible to say this about the existence of the world based on what we just now established? That in the source, Hashem's Bligvul and Gvul are completely joined. So therefore, when making the Gvul of the world, the Bligvul manifests, says Achinin, who the idea behind this is, Tzad in Abchira because of Hashem's choice. Mishabach HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ba'ilami, from when Hashem chose His world. Nimshach Ba'olam Gam Inyan Abligvul comes down into the world. Also, the unbounded aspect. That's the engraved part of the aspect, the part that the world is like completely united with Hashem, meaning the manifestation of the Bligvul in the world, as the Maimer will explain, where we see the Bligvul, the unlimited aspect that's manifested in the world.